It's a privilege and a pleasure to be here. It's nice to look out and see some faces that I haven't seen for a while. Mike Duncan, speaking of my growing up in Knoxville, Tennessee, I had the pleasure of working with the Tennessee Valley Authority for about 5.5 years, and during that time, Mike was on the board and served for a time as the chairman. Appreciate now your leadership at ACE. Thank you very much. Also, Jim Hunter with IBEW, and certainly there are thousands of employees who are bright and talented and committed that we depend on every day to provide the clean, safe, reliable, affordable electricity to our customers. And we appreciate the relationship and the partnership that we have with the IBEW and look forward to that continuing. So nice seeing you as well. So as I mentioned, our goal at Southern Company, and certainly many other utilities, see that we are here to provide clean, safe, reliable, and affordable electricity. And balancing all of those elements takes a lot of time and care and thought. And trying to be too overweight on one might underweight another in a way that's difficult for our customers. And I will say that at Southern Company, we have a philosophy that we call the circle of life. And at the center of the circle of life are customers. And every decision we make, we do with the customer in mind. We still have over 260 local payment offices open within our service territory. We serve most of the state of Alabama, Georgia, parts of Florida, and Mississippi. 48% of our customers have an annual income of $40,000 or less. I've walked into these payment offices and I've seen someone walk up to the window and greet the person behind the other side of the counter by the first name and pull out of his or her pockets cash and tell the person, that's what I've got this week and I'll be back next week with some more. Thanks for keeping my heat on, my air conditioning on, my refrigerator going in the meantime. And with a large population of people that we have who are making baseline economic kitchen table decisions every day, we are obviously focusing on the affordable part of clean, safe, reliable, and affordable, maybe more than some others. And for years, the ability for us to be able to provide that clean, safe, reliable, affordable power has been rooted in our well-running, very efficient and reliable coal fleet. And over the years, we are shifting from, at one point, in fact, back in the 60s, 85% of our electricity came from coal generation. Last year, that was less than half of that, in the 40-something percent. Over time, of course, we've added nuclear, we've added natural gas, we have hydro, we have energy efficiency. And just as Judy mentioned, the all of the above, I think that's something that a lot of people were talking about even before it was cool. And certainly something that our company and others really believe in deeply as the best way to meet those obligations that we have to our customers every day. We provide a product that people cannot live without, at least not for very long, and in some cases, not even for a moment. So again, we take that obligation very seriously, and we've embarked at Southern Company in trying to maintain the ability to use all of those energy resources for the foreseeable future. Let's talk about coal. Even back in the 60s, I mentioned when we were using as much as 85% of our, or producing as much as 85% of our electricity from coal, we began a very strong push in research and innovation. We knew we needed to ensure that these resources would be used and useful and available for our customers into the future. And a gentleman who at the time was not the CEO of Southern Company, but later became the CEO, his name is Alvin Vogel. Some of you may have heard of Alvin Vogel. He actually is the person who the movie, The Great Escape, is about. He was a war pilot, he was a POW during World War II, and he tried 7 times to escape and finally did. He was patient, although maybe some might argue about that, but he persevered. And certainly that kind of a culture and characteristic is important for this industry. So Alvin Vogel came to Southern Company, and the CEO at the time, Harley Branch, and he got together and said, we've got to find the best and the brightest minds because we've got to innovate our way through this. We can't give up on these technologies. We've got to find ways to make them better. And Alvin Vogel went and found a man who at the time was the director of research at Virginia Polytechnic Institute, but he had a PhD from University of Tennessee, my alma mater, and brought that man to Southern Company, and they developed a team of researchers. And for over 50 years, Southern Company has invested in robust and proprietary research. We partner with EPRI. It's a pleasure to be on that board. And certainly EPRI represents a great opportunity to leverage all of the resources from the electric utility industry, solve problems that all of us are interested in. But again, over the past 50 years, we've focused on how to make coal cleaner and more efficient. We're still doing that, and thanks to our very good partnership with not just EPRI and the other industry participants, but also DOE, we've worked for the last couple of decades to perfect a gasification technology that we are now building in Mississippi. It's our Kemper facility. It's a state-of-the-art coal gasification technology that uses low-grade coal, lignite, that is plentiful in that part of Mississippi, and gasifies that to create electricity. We're capturing 65% of the carbon, and we're putting that in a pipeline and sending that to companies to use for enhanced oil recovery. It's a wonderful opportunity, uniquely situated in terms of the availability literally at the mine mouth for the coal and the close availability to the coast for the desirous use of the CO2 for enhanced oil recovery. So we are committed to making coal viable for the future, keeping coal viable. We've also, as I mentioned, moved into natural gas in a way that we think is appropriate. We're not overweighting natural gas, but having the ability to utilize lower cost natural gas when it's available makes sense for our customers. Now, at sometimes lower cost natural gas is not available, and we certainly experienced that this past winter during the polar vortex. When, during that period of time, and as we've gotten through the summer, Southern Company finds itself actually peaking this year in the winter. We have always peaked in the summer, but this year it was so cold, we peaked in the winter. And so we had a huge demand, and in fact, we had nearly our all-time peak as far back as 2007 when the economy was going very, very strongly. So we had to provide electricity to our customers, and at the time, natural gas prices were soaring. And certainly there are stories you've all read about natural gas prices being as high as $120 an MMBTU in the Northeast United States. Fortunately, it wasn't that high where we are. We're closer again to more pipelines and more access, but natural gas was still much more expensive. And we were able to use the low-cost coal that we had and run our coal fleet in a way that actually saved our customers over $100 million in fuel charges. This flexibility that our diverse portfolio provides is the best answer, we believe, for our customers. And we believe we've got as much flexibility as anybody, but we've got to continue to improve that flexibility. So again, in addition to coal and gas, there's nuclear. Nuclear has to be a part of the picture. And I'm proud to have worked at TVA and Southern, 2 of the 3 companies that are building nuclear. Of course, TVA is completing a unit that was started back in the late 70s and early 80s. And Southern Company is pursuing new generation, the advanced passive Westinghouse design at our plant Vogel, which I must say I think is fitting given the namesake of that plant for us to be pursuing this new generation of nuclear. Of course, there are renewables, and within the Southern electric system, wind is not as prevalent as in the Midwest, but we have entered into some wind contracts. So we're getting wind by wire. And we're also entering into some solar, actually it's not necessarily solar contracts, we are building some solar plants within the state of Georgia. And over the next couple of years, the state of Georgia will have the largest amount of solar power that in a state that does not have a renewable portfolio standard mandate. So we are pursuing renewables where it makes sense. And then, of course, there's energy efficiency, which has to be a part of the mix, too. And we do want people to use electricity more wisely. We want our customers to be educated and make better choices. I often will talk about the fact that this industry, with all that we say about our focus on the customers and we want them to be satisfied, it's a little ironic that we actually shock our customers often once a month when they receive a bill. They open it up in the middle of September, often having no idea what to expect. And when they see that bottom line number, they're usually surprised. Some people are surprised and still very grateful to have had the comfort and cooling during those hot summer months. But how can we communicate with our customers more? And certainly Southern and many other utilities are embarking on automated metering systems so that our customers can get information online. And in fact, right now, if I pulled up the Georgia Power website, I could pull up my account and show you all what my bill is so far this month and what it's estimated to be by the end of the month based on my current usage patterns. We had some storms roll through Alabama and Georgia yesterday. I could pull up and see where the outages are and what the estimated restoration times are. Providing information to our customers is very important, and we want them to be wise consumers of our product. But at the same time, we also believe that in many cases, electricity can be the better choice compared to other energy options. I'll just give you one example. The Savannah port, one of the largest ports in the country, one of the largest particularly on the East Coast, had very large gantry cranes fired by diesel motors. They have converted all of those cranes to electric cranes. For Georgia Power, that is a tremendous additional load, as much as 35 to 40 megawatts. However, it is a much better environmental choice for that port. It's a more economic choice. It's a safer choice. And so therefore, where electricity usage makes sense, we want to promote the selection of electricity. Again, we want wise consumers of energy, wise consumers of our product, and certainly want people to have access to, and we have some of the most robust energy efficiency programs in the country. But at the same time, electric vehicles and electrification in many other parts of the economy makes a lot of sense. And we want to make sure that our customers are not penalized because our electricity usage may in fact be growing. Coal is a workhorse of this economy. Today it provides about 40% of all of the electricity generation. It's very available, very abundant. 27% of the coal reserves in the world are in the United States. We are the Saudi Arabia of coal, and we should absolutely find a way to use that resource. I've already talked a little bit about innovation, and that is a way for us to move forward, but let me talk about some of the headwinds that coal is facing, and certainly not the least of which are some of the environmental regulations that we see in front of us. They threaten to remove coal from the energy mix rather than work to find a way over a reasonable period of time to innovate and make the continued use of coal viable. Certainly, EPA's new source performance standards essentially eliminate coal as a future generation option. And the proposed greenhouse gas emission guidelines for existing sources is an overreach in our mind by EPA. We see the proposal as unworkable and increasing electricity prices and hurting reliability. 4 areas particularly. Now, I'm an engineer. One of the first things I did at Southern Company was chase BTUs. I did Syntha models, which are essentially heat balances, and I worked with our engineers in the plant, and at all of our plants we have at least one person, and in many cases a team, focusing on literally every day chasing the heat rate, getting rid of wasted BTUs, lowering the heat rate. How can we make the efficiency of our plants as great as possible? And that's part of what I did early in my career. And the thought that there is still 6% reduction left at our plants is just not reasonable. The unprecedented expansion of renewable, I've already talked about, certainly in the Southeast would be unworkable. The guidelines require reducing the amount of electricity customers receive from coal and increasing that amount from natural gas, not giving a company like Southern the flexibility to use the lower cost resource and exposing customers to higher cost higher cost natural gas when coal may be less expensive. So the idea of this economic dispatch, which is also very close to the hearts of people who run electric utilities, is challenged. And all of these combined assume, let me just say that the modeling that was done assumes that you do one and then the other and then the other, when in fact, actually all of them in a combined way are even more difficult to achieve. So essentially, this type of a proposal, we believe, again, first of all, is an overreach, and secondly, unworkable, particularly for a company like us who has focused on maintaining highly efficient, flexible resources over our lifetime. So I mentioned that a key to moving past this is innovation. And this is something that Southern believes to its core, and believes actually not just in talking about it, but investing in it. And over the past decade, we have managed about $800 million worth of research and development in environmental areas. We've invested more than $9 billion in environmental controls, and we've reduced our emissions more than 80% while increasing electricity consumption and supply by 40%. So a couple of the examples of what we're doing are as follows. We have a plant in Mobile, Alabama. It's called Plant Berry. We have what was the largest carbon capture and sequestration demonstration until just recently. So one of the largest carbon capture and sequestration demonstration projects where we are capturing up to 150,000 tons of CO2, which is the equivalent of the amount of CO2 from about 25 megawatts of generation per year for underground storage. We also house at a facility south of Birmingham, Alabama, the National Carbon Capture Center. Southern Company operates and runs that facility for DOE. It's the nation's carbon capture center. Prior to that, it was called the Power System Development Facility. And again, through our partnership with folks like DOE and other vendors, we have research solutions to use coal in a more clean way and tried to particularly focus on a resource that was near to us, which is lignite in Mississippi.